Imagine a massive tornado rips through your town.
Right.
The dust settles, the sirens finally fade, and, you look around at your neighborhood, and it's just in ruins.
It's a terrifying scenario.
It really is.
Yeah.
And in that exact moment, everyone kind of shares the same unspoken assumption, right?
Oh, for sure. That the federal government is going to swoop in.
Exactly. We picture fleets of trucks, blank checks, and armies of federal workers arriving to put everything back together.
Yeah, the cavalry coming over the hill.
Right. But what if the government just didn't?
Wow.
Like, what if they literally just handed your local mayor a check, wished them luck, and drove away?
I mean, it is a really jarring thought.
Yeah.
But it's actually the cornerstone of a massive new reality we are looking at today.
Which is exactly why we're doing this deep dive.
Right, because we have this deep-seated expectation in America about how disaster relief works. But, well, the administrative machinery behind it is fundamentally breaking down.
Breaking down completely.
Yeah, and the people at the very top have realized that the current system is just, too complex, too slow, and totally unsustainable.
Which brings us to the focus of today's deep dive. We are unpacking a highly detailed, honestly sweeping document.
The May 7, 2026 final report from the President's Council to assess FEMA.
That's the one. And the mission of this deep dive is to extract the absolute most critical insights from this massive reform plan.
Is a lot to get through.
It is, yeah. So we're going to focus specifically on what these structural changes mean for the boots on the ground, like your local emergency managers, and what it means for you, the resident living in a small county, when the storm clears.
And just to ground our conversation right from the start, we are looking strictly at the factual recommendations here.
Right, no politics.
Exactly. The profound logistical implications laid out in this report. We're not here to endorse the policies or, take political sides.
We're just looking at the source material.
Right. Our goal is to impartially analyze the text because this document outlines a total transformation of how America handles disasters.
It really is a complete rewrite of the playbook.
Oh, absolutely. It completely alters the balance of power and responsibility between Washington and your local community.
So before we even get into the massive funding overhauls, we have to look at the core philosophy driving this.
Because it redefines everything.
Right. The report states point blank that FEMA, as an agency, has been irreparably damaged.
Their exact words.
Irreparably damaged.
Yeah.
By mission creep and bureaucratic bloat.
Yeah.
So they are introducing a new guiding doctrine for disaster response, and it's summarized in one specific phrase.
Right. Locally executed, state or tribally managed, and federally supported.
Federally supported.
Yeah, that word supported is carrying a massive amount of weight there.
How so?
Notice it does not say federally led.
Oh.
FEMA is intentionally stepping back from being the primary on-the-ground responder. Instead, the burden of leadership and the actual heavy lifting of managing a disaster shifts entirely to state, local, tribal, and territorial governments.
The SLTTs.
Exactly. You'll see that acronym, SLTT, used throughout the report to describe this group.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. It's like FEMA is going from being the general contractor who brings their own crew, their own bulldozers, and their own materials to rebuild your town,
All right.
to just being like the bank that approves your loan and hands you some specialized blueprints so you can do it yourself.
That is a perfect analogy. And, what's fascinating here is the motivation behind that shift.
Why are you doing it?
It's purely financial and operational survival.
Yeah.
The system has become unbelievably top-heavy.
Okay.
The report points out that right now, almost 25 cents of every single disaster dollar goes to administrative expenses.
Wait, 25 cents?
Yeah.
So 25% just to manage the money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not to survivors, not to concrete drywall or actually rescuing people, just to the administration of the funds.
That means for every $1 billion in disaster aid, $250 million is just evaporating into paperwork. How does that even happen?
It happens because the grant process became an absolute labyrinth.
I can imagine.
The report highlights a staggering quote from a FEMA official in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
Following the hurricanes there, the local government had to hire 500 contracted employees just to navigate FEMA's grant process.
500 people just to fill out forms.
A small army of consultants doing nothing but filling out forms to unlock the funding.
That is insane.
And the cost of those consultants is skyrocketing everywhere. Like in Florida, the report notes that the hourly rate for a recovery consultant has jumped from about $100 to nearly $300 an hour.
Oh, wow.
Just since 2018.
It's a literal disaster industrial complex.
Completely.
Like, the harder the paperwork is to fill out, the more money these consulting firms make.
Yeah.
So, to cut that bloat, the federal government is telling local managers, you are in charge now. We are cutting out the middleman.
That's the plan.
But they aren't just leaving them in the dark, right?
Mhm.
Because giving a small town mayor total control without a playbook, that sounds like a recipe for chaos.
Oh, absolutely. The report requires local and state emergency managers to adopt strict national capability standards to even qualify for this new autonomy.
Okay, like what?
They specifically mandate adopting frameworks like NIMS, that's the National Incident Management System, and the National Qualification System.
Let's translate those for the listener. Because NIMS sounds incredibly bureaucratic. What does it actually do on the ground?
Think of NIMS as a universal operating language for first responders.
Okay.
If a massive wildfire breaks out in Oregon, right, and a fire chief from Maine flies in to help,
Yeah.
NIMS ensures they both use the exact same terminology, the exact same chain of command structure, and the exact same radio protocols.
Oh, so they aren't totally lost.
Right. They don't have to waste 3 days figuring out how to work together. The federal government is saying that every local jurisdiction must speak this universal language fluidly.
That makes total sense, actually. And the report also introduces something called the Unified Resource Catalog, which ties into this, right?
Yes, exactly.
It sounds almost like an Amazon marketplace for disaster relief.
That's a brilliant way to conceptualize it. If you are a local emergency manager, you will be required to inventory every single typed resource you have.
Like what kind of resources?
Swiftwater rescue boats,
Hmm.
mobile generators, trained search dogs, anything. And you upload it into this searchable nationwide online catalog.
Oh, wow.
So if the county next door gets hit by a tornado and their power grid fails, they don't call Washington.
They just look it up.
Yeah? They open the catalog, see that you have 4 industrial generators sitting idle, see the pre-negotiated cost to rent them, and request them immediately through mutual aid agreements.
So it's forcing local governments to organize their toolboxes and share with their neighbors before the emergency even happens.
Exactly.
I love the efficiency of that. But it leads to the massive elephant in the room.
The funding.
Right. If state and local emergency managers are now expected to take the lead, deploy their own resources, and manage the recovery, how are they going to pay for it?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Especially if the whole point is to avoid that old reimbursement system with the $300 an hour consultants.
This is where we see the most significant funding overhaul in the entire document. It's called the RAPID program,
RAPID. What does that stand for?
the Reformed and Partnered Initiative for Disasters. And RAPID is completely replacing the legacy public assistance program.
Okay, and the old public assistance program was the one where a town had to, like, save every single receipt for every broken traffic light, every pothole,
Every single one.
submit it to FEMA, wait years, and just cross their fingers for reimbursement.
The old model was completely reactive and rooted in exact dollar assessments.
Right.
A town would get hit, and then they'd have to wait for federal inspectors to fly out, physically look at the broken bridge, argue about the scope of work, and go through endless compliance reviews before seeing a dime.
That sounds exhausting.
It was. The report notes that FEMA currently has a backlog of 300,000 open projects tied up in this exact red tape.
300,000.
Yes. That represents billions of dollars in unliquidated funds just sitting there while communities wait to rebuild.
Okay, so if Rapid throws that old receipt-based model out the window, what replaces it? Like, how does a town actually get the money to rebuild the bridge?
RAPID uses a mechanism called a parametric trigger.
Parametric trigger.
Yeah. Instead of waiting to subjectively assess exactly how much damage was done to the bridge, the payout is tied to a predefined, objective, measurable event.
Okay, give me an example.
For example, a specific sustained wind speed during a hurricane, measured by certified meteorological stations, or a specific flood depth on a river gauge, or the exact magnitude of an earthquake.
Whoa, hang on. Are you telling me that if a Category 3 hurricane hits Florida and the wind gauges hit that pre-agreed parametric trigger, the state just gets a massive multi-million-dollar deposit
Exactly.
without having to prove what broke first?
That is exactly the mechanism. If the trigger is hit, the state automatically receives 50 to 75% of the estimated federal payout directly into its treasury
How fast?
within 30 days of the disaster declaration.
30 days. I have to play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
How on earth do you hand over that much cash, that fast, and prevent massive mismanagement?
It's a fair question.
I mean, if a state gets $1 billion in 30 days based on a wind speed reading, what stops a corrupt local official from using disaster funds to pave a road that wasn't even touched by the storm?
Right. So the council is trading extreme front-end bureaucracy for speed and severe back-end auditing.
Ah, okay.
Under Rapid, the state gets the money fast, so they don't have to take out massive loans just to start removing debris and restoring power. But the accountability doesn't disappear. It just shifts.
To the back end.
Exactly. The state is required to use its own state auditors or certified public accountants to conduct a strict two-phase audit. They have 1 year to prove exactly how the money was spent.
1 year.
And furthermore, any unspent federal funds must be fully expended or returned to the Treasury within 8 years.
So the 8-year clawback is the safety net.
Right.
The federal government is basically saying, we will trust you with the cash up front so you can save lives and clear the roads today, but your own state auditors better have an immaculate paper trail when we come knocking.
Precisely. And to speed up the actual rebuilding process, the report removes another massive hurdle:
What's that?
federal environmental reviews.
Oh.
Historically, replacing a damaged piece of infrastructure required a lengthy Federal National Environmental Policy Act review, or NEPA.
Right. Those can take forever.
Now, states and local governments are allowed to use their own certified state-level environmental and historic preservation reviews. They can skip the federal bottleneck entirely.
That is a massive transfer of autonomy. And I see here in the report, this speed over bureaucracy model isn't just for fixing broken public infrastructure. It also applies to mitigating future disasters.
That's right. Yes.
The old hazard mitigation grant program is turning into something called R3P.
The Refined Risk Reduction Program, yeah.
Okay.
The historical problem with mitigation funding was the timing. The money to harden your infrastructure or elevate homes often arrived years after the disaster.
Long after people had already rebuilt.
Exactly. They'd rebuilt their homes the exact same vulnerable way. R3P fixes this by offering a rapid mitigation advance. States get up to 5% of the federal contribution within the first 30 days, specifically earmarked for immediate residential mitigation.
So while the contractors are already there rebuilding your roof after a hurricane, you actually have the cash in hand to put on hurricane straps or impact windows immediately.
Right.
Rather than waiting a year for a grant approval. That is incredibly practical.
It really is.
But let's pivot here. We've solved the funding for the mayor trying to fix the town's bridge. Let's bring this down to the listener's living room.
Okay.
What if I'm just a guy whose house burned down in a wildfire? How does this new speed over bureaucracy model apply to an individual resident?
The report introduces the FAIR program, which stands for the Framework for Accessible Individual Relief.
Fair.
Yeah. FAIR is entirely replacing the current Individual Assistance Program, which the council bluntly describes as adversarial, overly slow, and confusing.
Man, reading through the survey feedback in the report from actual survivors, the old system sounds like psychological torture.
That was awful.
You have people who have literally lost all their worldly possessions and they are forced to sit in a tent and fill out mountains of paperwork,
Yeah.
trying to prove they deserve help across 15 different distinct categories of federal assistance. The bureaucracy just compounds the trauma.
It does. And the AirPair program is designed to end that specific nightmare by consolidating those 15 confusing categories into a single direct payment package.
Just one package.
Right. The goal is to give survivors a swift, transparent lump sum of support without making them fight an insurance-style adjuster from the government.
That sounds amazing.
It does, but, well, the financial parameters of this lump sum are incredibly strict.
Okay, how strict are we talking?
For homeowners, the direct payment is capped at exactly 15% of the home's pre-disaster assessed value.
15%.
Yeah, and they put a maximum valuation cap of $1 million on the property. So doing the math, the absolute maximum federal payment a homeowner could ever receive is $150,000.
Wait, 15%? That seems remarkably low if your entire home is reduced to ashes.
It is a big drop.
What is the logic behind capping the immediate relief so stringently?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is a deliberate and harsh reset of expectations.
A reset.
The report explicitly states that FEMA is getting out of the business of long-term housing recovery. The 15% lump sum is designed to get you back on your feet to buy clothes, secure a temporary rental, and replace essential immediate items. Federal disaster money is no longer intended to make you whole or rebuild your house.
Wow. So who is supposed to make you whole? Where does the long-term housing responsibility fall?
It shifts almost entirely to the private sector and other agencies.
Okay.
The onus is placed heavily on the individual to carry robust private insurance. Any remaining gaps are supposed to be handled by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or low-interest loans from the Small Business Administration.
So FEMA is just done with it.
Under this new doctrine, FEMA will only focus on emergency and temporary housing, and strictly for homes that are completely uninhabitable.
And what about renters? I mean, they don't have a home's assessed value to calculate from.
Right. For renters, the FAIR program offers a flat payment covering exactly 3 months of fair market rent,
Just 3 months.
based on regional HUD rates for their household size. There is a possible extension to 6 months for those who can prove exceptional need. But again, the philosophy is a quick injection of cash to prevent homelessness, not a long-term subsidy.
This is a monumental paradigm shift. The federal government is officially stepping back from carrying the primary financial risk for individual property loss.
Completely.
And the report notes they are applying the same philosophy to the National Flood Insurance Program, right? The NFIP.
Yes. They want to push policies toward the private market to depopulate the federal program, and they are implementing true risk-based pricing.
Risk-based pricing, what does that mean for the homeowner?
By implementing true risk-based pricing, the government wants people to feel their actual geographical risk through the cost of their premiums.
Okay.
If it costs $15,000 a year to insure a beach house against flooding, that is a very clear financial signal, incentivizing the owner to either aggressively mitigate the property or relocate entirely.
Basically pricing them out of the danger zone.
Ex-
You know, getting a check fast and cutting red tape sounds incredibly efficient on paper in Washington.
Sure does.
But let's look at the actual survey data inside the report because there is a glaring reality check happening at the local level.
Yeah, this is the really heavy part.
Small counties are looking at this new locally executed mandate, and they are deeply, deeply panicked that they simply do not have the manpower to do it.
The survey data is the most sobering part of the document. The council surveyed 1,387 stakeholders,
Okay.
primarily local emergency management agencies across the country. And while almost all of them agreed that the old FEMA bureaucracy was a nightmare, they expressed sheer terror about the transition to this new model.
Sheer terror.
Specifically, there were 87 mentions in the survey highlighting severe gaps in mass care,
Mass care meaning?
meaning the logistical ability to shelter and feed thousands of people, and 92 mentions of gaps in operational communications.
It sounds like small towns are worried they're being handed a fire hose of funding, but they don't actually have any firefighters on staff to hold the hose.
That is the exact fear. The report highlights a response from the Emergency Management Office in Portsmouth, Virginia, that paints this picture perfectly.
What did they say?
Portsmouth bluntly stated that their entire emergency management team consists of 2 full-time professionals.
Wait, 2?
Just 2 people.
For the whole city?
Yes. They went on record saying that without FEMA's on-the-ground coordination, technical assistance, and physical resources, they simply do not have the physical capacity to meet the demands of sheltering, feeding, and hydrating their population during a major incident.
2 people trying to manage the mass care of an entire city during a catastrophic event. That is terrifying.
It is.
If FEMA is pulling back its physical presence to just be the supporter and the bank, what is the report's solution for a place like Portsmouth? Are they just on their own?
The report's solution requires a total overhaul of local emergency infrastructure. Moving forward, local grants from the federal government will focus strictly on building new capabilities, not sustaining old ones.
Do they have to build from scratch?
Localities are expected to use these grants to build mission-ready teams. The expectation is that places like Portsmouth will have to rely heavily on state-to-state mutual aid using that unified resource catalog we discussed.
Right.
And they must deeply integrate nonprofits, volunteer groups, and the private sector into their immediate response plans.
So FEMA isn't bringing the basic stuff anymore. They aren't bringing the water trucks and the cots.
No.
But they must still control the really heavy, specialized equipment that a local town could never afford, right?
Yes, that remains. FEMA will limit its physical, on-the-ground presence to highly specialized, irreplaceable national assets.
Like what?
Things like the Urban Search and Rescue Task Forces, the elite teams that pull people out of collapsed high-rises, or managing the IPWS National Emergency Alert System.
Okay, things a local county could never replicate.
Exactly. But for the day-to-day logistics of running a high school gymnasium as a shelter or coordinating local debris removal, The local and state governments have to figure it out themselves.
And the transitional timeline here is brutal. I mean, the report notes that non-disaster preparedness grants are going to be strictly limited.
Very limited.
They will fund a new capability or a new emergency personnel position for a maximum of 3 years. After that 3-year mark, the local jurisdiction has to absorb the cost into their own local tax base in perpetuity.
It is a forced end to federal dependency.
Yeah.
But the transitional pain is going to be incredibly uneven across the country.
How so?
Large states like California, Texas, or Florida, which already have highly robust, well-funded state emergency management divisions, might actually thrive under this new autonomy.
Because they have the infrastructure.
Right. They have the staff to handle the rapid programs audits and the infrastructure to distribute 30-day payouts effectively.
But the small rural county.
Exactly. The small rural counties or states with consistently underfunded emergency services that have historically relied on FEMA to act as their supplementary workforce are in for a massive shock.
Yeah.
They're going to have to drastically rethink how they survive the first 2 weeks of a disaster.
Yeah.
They have to build local coalitions immediately because the federal cavalry simply isn't coming to pitch the tents anymore.
Okay, let's zoom out and synthesize all of this for the listener because we've covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have.
The era of relying on a massive physical federal response to come in and fix local disasters is officially ending. The new model, driven by the Rapid and FAIR programs, promises a radically different approach, speed and local control.
We are looking at a future of 30-day payouts for public infrastructure based on objective parametric triggers like wind speed and a single, transparent lump sum payment for individual survivors whose homes are destroyed.
Right.
It strips away the paralyzing front-end red tape, relying instead on state-level environmental reviews and strict back-end auditing.
But the trade-off for that speed is monumental. The heavy lifting shifts squarely onto the shoulders of your state and local emergency managers, the people right in your backyard who now have to orchestrate the entire response and recovery themselves.
That's the reality.
And for you, the resident, it is a massive shift toward personal responsibility. FEMA is entirely out of the long-term housing game. That means your personal private insurance policy is now the most vital safety net you have.
It is the ultimate double-edged sword. It is a philosophy that trades federal hand-holding and long-term financial guarantees for immediate liquidity and local autonomy.
Which leaves us with one final, frankly unsettling thought to ponder.
Hmm.
If disaster response truly becomes locally executed and state-managed, as this new doctrine demands, what happens to the map of recovery in America?
Yeah.
Will we start to see a widening survival gap? Will wealthy, highly organized states and affluent counties bounce back from catastrophes in record time using these fast catch programs, while smaller, poorer, under-resourced counties simply drown because they couldn't afford to build their own emergency infrastructure or hire more than 2 people?
It's a real concern.
The next time the storm clears and the jagged reality of the damage is finally visible in your neighborhood, how prepared is your local community to stand completely on its own?